Hey Migdos, this is Vention. I just wrote an article on the Float app, and it's a bit long. And I thought about posting it. I mean, I can't post it to Twitter because obviously it's too long. So I thought I'd just wrap it up into the. I posted it on Float, and I'm also so you can go there if you want to check it out. But I'm also going to just give you an overview of it, and it's my insight or my opinion on civilizations. It's my opinion that a civilization can only get so big. Oh, pardon my rough appearance. I haven't really started my day. Anyway, it's my opinion that a civilization can only get so big before other forces come in and start tearing it down, right? And tearing it apart. There's like forces which hold it together and tie it together in basically when everybody's on the same page. Government is almost unnecessary because people work together so well, but then it gets bigger and bigger, and the people who run government, they tend to get farther and farther up in their ivory towers until they have like zero respect for like normal people, which is kind of understandable because I am in the same boat in a way, because I have like less than stellar respect for your average MSNBC watching, Dancing with the Stars watching sheeple who believe everything the government says and everything the media says, which is basically the government. And I'm not tremendously impressed with those people, and the elites sure as heck aren't. And the elites know that that the low IQ masses, when they get really angry, they have a tendency to start constructing guillotines and bringing the elites in for their guest appearance, and they're paranoid of that. So they've gone totally evil and dark probably out of terror of us, not us, but the sheeple, and they're doing everything they can to get their totalitarian system. But man, that's a bad idea too, because when you get a really totalitarian government and the people really aren't in charge, they just lose it. That, like in communist China, for example, the people are at each other's throats. You could have a whole crowded area of people, and a pickpocket can be doing his thing, and nobody will sound the alarm because it's not them that's being attacked. It's like their whole anything that matters to them contracts to just maybe about as far as they can reach around them. And nothing beyond that really matters. And in the US, massive government overshoot has squashed any attempt to have any kind of ownership of your community. Like if we say anything, against like a bunch of crackheads moving into the neighborhood, then we're some kind of some kind of racist or crackhead phobia or something like that. And so we have to tolerate them for their diversity as they tear the neighborhood to shit. And then the neighborhood sucks, so we leave, and then everybody with any ability to leave leaves, and then the rest of it just falls into a death spiral of stupidity and destruction and graffiti and just complete stupidity. And that is a collapsed society. And there can be little enclaves of of the old society that still function, but the laws of society dominate, and the ability of government to use force pretty much precludes a lot of those enclaves until the central government gets weak enough that these other little forces, other little enclaves can start taking over. There's a book that was pretty good, but I can't remember what the Jared Diamond, I think. No, it's not. It's anyway the I can't remember. Dang. It's about a future situation, and it's called. Oh man, I almost had it. It's a future situation where the central government of the country has pretty much collapsed. Dollars aren't worth shit, and then enclaves like so and so's New Hong Kong and other little enclaves and neighborhoods and like city states exist within the collapsed society, and that could conceivably, or something like that could conceivably happen. But right now we have this whole virus thing, and everybody who wants to steal and gain more out of the whole catastrophe, I suppose, is doing everything they can to extend the lockdown and make the virus look worse than it is, and the result, and they're attempting to keep all the good normal people locked down while they steal. Right? The banksters want their bailouts. The big huge corporations want their bailouts. The hedge funds who've lost a ton of money, they want to be bailed out too. I think some of them are actually getting bailed out. And then the banks, of course, want their bailouts. All the big companies, the airlines, all these big companies, they've been doing everything they can to take every little bit of cash off the table they could to do their stock buybacks and push the share price up so that they can get their bonuses, right? And then when the whole thing collapses or about to collapse, we had this big wave of CEOs and board members resigning and taking their golden parachutes and heading for the hills. They saw what was coming. And then the noobs came in, and they're attempting to run the disaster, and it's going to be pretty dramatic what's going to happen. I think we're in another 2008. If the virus never occurred, we would still have a second 2008 heading our way like a freight train. And but now that the virus has occurred, they're attempting to use that to just steal everything they can. The leftists and the statists, basically the elites and their totally freaking MSNBC indoctrinated drone thralls, those people all want our guns so that they can have their totalitarian world government. But every single time the leftists do that, they have a big huge meltdown, and the government ends up killing millions of them, as well as a lot of us too, people who have their shit together. And then they just steal and steal, and basically governments want more control. The banksters and the companies want their bailouts. The leftists want their New World Order elite utopia that the elites have promised them, which the promises will be broken, of course. But by then they will have disarmed us, so will no longer have the ability to resist what's coming. And but there are other forces as well, and one of those other forces is crypto. You can have a smart contract to, for example, transfer real estate or some other thing of value, you can create the smart contract, and it has escrow and has all that good stuff in it, and then you can make the transfer, and then the smart contract, then you can move and everything, and then the smart contract will execute once you're moved in, and then they can basically get the money then. But and that replaces like escrow companies and title companies, and it can replace, well, maybe not title companies, but it can replace a lot of real estate lawyers and courts and whatnot, and it can claw a lot of that power back. And plus, in situations, governments where they're like massively corrupt, like in Cambodia and Thailand to some degree, and those places, they basically I've heard of situations where a person pays money for the house, and then the title company is corrupt, and then they just hand the money over to the people who are in the house, and then they refuse to leave once they got the money, and then there's very little that the person can do to get them out because the laws and everything, or the court systems, are so corrupt. But if they use a smart contract, then all of those multiple conditions can take place that have to be signed off by people and groups and escrow officers, which all get money, in exchange for their time. And then once they're in the house and then they agree, they can sign the smart contract with their private key. The escrow officer sees that the person is in and everybody's happy, then he signs off on it. And the customer or the person who's selling the house, if they're reasonably, they want the money and they've already moved out of the house, so they sign their part of the smart contract. And the escrow officer, because 2 out of 3 have already signed, so the contract goes through, the escrow officer doesn't even need to get involved unless something goes wrong, in which case then he comes into play. And if the previous owner refused to move out, the escrow officer and the buyer can both refuse to sign off the smart contract, and then the person selling the house, when they refuse to move out, they don't get the money. So then you can just null and void that smart contract and just go on to the next thing. But the money is already in the contract, and if you're smart when you make the contract, smart contracts will start becoming templates. People will just be able to pay a small amount to a place that curates all of these contracts and checks them and how they've performed well in the past. Then you can take that smart contract. Basically, in order to create the smart contract, the seller would have to have some skin in the game and have to put some money in as well. And then they will have some reason to want to get that money back after they've moved out of the house. But if they refuse to move out of the house, then they have lost money too. So that would prevent them from just flipping the person off and having the person lose like $300,000 in the smart contract when they didn't sign off on it. There's also other parts of the smart contract, if these smart contracts, which allow the money to be sent back to the original person who sent it. If the smart contract owner or person who initiates it votes for that, and the person refused to move out, then he can get the escrow officer involved. Then the escrow officer will say, okay, the money should go back to the original person. And then basically, then all of that stuff basically all of these corrupt things and expensive court systems and lawyers can all be replaced by smart contracts. And it's so much cheaper than the normal court system that the elites, even if they get their totalitarian government and everything, the smart contract technology will still be out there, and it will still bring the levers of power closer to normal people when they fill out these contracts. And that decreases the elite's ability to print money, because with smart contracts you have crypto, and crypto is, well, at least Bitcoin is a deflationary currency. In 9 days the inflation rate of Bitcoin is going to be cut in half, and then over the next, that tends to create a longer term bull market that lasts about 18 months or so until you reach the next all-time high. Then you get the next bear market, and I hope you're ready for that. Be sure to take some profits. I'm not sure if I will. I'm kind of a hodler. I might just ride that next bear market into oblivion, just like I rode the previous one, and then just only pull out like $38,000 a year, and then I will not be eligible to pay income tax. So I'll get that entire $38,000 a year. I won't have to just get like 80% of it as if I was like working for it. Okay, so there are countries, as back to my original thought, countries and nations can reach a certain size and a certain age and everything and a certain level of maturity before forces within it start trying to tear it apart. There's always such forces. Like right now we have a lot of leftists, like college professors, who've really been pushing the leftist agenda, and it turns out a lot of those people are getting money from China. Can you believe that shit? We're actually having our university professors bribed by freaking totalitarian communist China. That's insane. And they have been pushing a major, they have basically taken over the media, because all the people coming out of college are all freaking Marxists. And basically that's really pushed the Marxist agenda in the world, because now they're majorly Marxist, massively feminist, and it's reflected in everything the government and entertainment and Hollywood and everything does. They have changed so much that they are not even hardly like us anymore. A large portion of the people who really have levers of power, they're all part of that crazy, evil, horrible cult. And it's a way of just keeping control of the elite, keeping control of the massive levers of power. And they're doing, and that cult, it's my opinion that I think it's bullshit. I'm a big spiritual guy. I'm like one of those people who see auras and everything, but I'm thinking most of that big satanic cult is BS, and it's just designed to control the elites to keep them from losing their money every 4 generations, right? You get this first generation starts the company, second guy builds it up a bit, third guy kind of maintains it sort of, but he didn't build any of it, and then the fourth generation totally loses it, and then they become normal people again. Just like my grandfather is the first generation of normal people, because in the past my family was like supposedly wealthy, and they were like in the way upper management of McCormick's Reaper Corporation, that had those horse-drawn reapers that went around harvesting all the fields. And tremendously amazing bit of technology, and apparently my great-great-grandparents were bigwigs in that. But my great grandparents lost it all, and then my grandparent, he ended up having to go into the railroad when he was like 9 years old and become an apprentice, and he worked his way up to an engineer, and so basically it worked out well enough. But the cult, in my opinion, is designed to cause enough pain and anguish on the next generation so they don't get spoiled, and then they get really focused on gaining, some wealth and power to protect themselves with, and then that's one part of the things that are tearing the world, the country apart. Then of course they don't want the country to develop a new meme or a new culture, something that they would have to try to get out in front of and control. They want their system to be in control. And those people, so what they're doing is they're sowing discord throughout the entire country. They took over the media, and they're doing every single thing they can, like putting big, huge groups together and then trying to make it look like it's a real grassroots thing. And then they're trying to ramp up the massive hatred of like white people and middle class people and males, of course, and everything that they want to take from everyone they want to take from, they're trying to demonize. Like we are, the sort of middle to the right, gun owning, productive people. We are the engine that drives the country, and anybody who wants to take over the country have got to get control of our productivity and our wealth. And if they don't, they can't rule the country. But there's something else that's coming in as well. The elites, they're trying to get their new world order. They're trying to get their totalitarian dream, which is our nightmare. They're trying to get it, but there's another force. The crypto, I believe, is going to claw back a lot of that power to us. For example, my Bitcoins, right? If you have Bitcoins properly stored, no force on this earth can take them away from you. They can kill you. They can take all your other money. They can do every horrible thing imaginable. But if the money is going to move, you have to send it. And then they have to know it's there first. So crypto claws tremendous power back to us, but it's also very efficient. And the elites are all about taking money back and taking power from us and bringing it to them, because that's the only way they can stay in charge, is that if they harvest our wealth and take control of it, then they can run the country and the world. But with crypto, anybody can write those smart contracts if they study it, and that brings the levers of power back closer to us. And crypto, in order to function, has to have a valuable token. You can't have a blockchain without a valuable token. And the valuable tokens can be swapped and mixed and held anonymously. You can do all kinds of things with them, and that claws power back to us. And it is so much more efficient than their old system of lawyers and courts and bailiffs and the whole big huge system. And it's so much more efficient that it has to pull bandwidth back from the old system, and that is going to claw, even if the elites get their, an app in all of our phones that tells tell them where we are at all times, and if they can get all their totalitarian stuff, their crypto exists and that technology exists. They're gonna have to use it. They have to use it because it's so much more efficient. And when they use it, that is when all that power comes back to us, because that takes away their ability to print money. And printed money is the only thing that is the only way they've been able to seize control of the media and seize control of government, buy all the politicians. That's the only way they've been able to maintain control and pay for all the feminist programs that shatter society. And that's how they pay for all this stuff. And with smart contracts, with crypto, that's going to have valuable tokens, and it's going to be widespread, and that's going to claw all that power back. And then suddenly they get to be normal people again. They're going to be rich as can be, but their ability to just print money out of nowhere, that is not going to last much longer. So the forces that tear countries apart are still at work, and if it wasn't for crypto, man, I would have no hope. I would be like buying all the gold I could and burying it in random locations, and making treasure maps and having those encrypted under multiple layers of encryption. And that's about the only way I would be able to do it. But with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, it claws all that power back, and I can go anywhere in the world and I can bring that money with me. We can have like major banking system collapse and my Bitcoins would still function. If there are multiple channels of how to move wealth and money around now, and if we have like another big banking system freeze up like we did in 2009, and we could, even though the government has now stepped into that market that previously froze up, and they're printing tons of money and lubricating that mechanism now, something could happen with the printed money again, and this thing could break. And if that's the case, many other ways of transferring wealth now exist, and it would be very quick and very easy for the billers, like the electric company, your cell phone company, whatever, to put a QR code on your bill that you could scan with a phone, that would take you to a paying website that would allow you to pay in crypto, and the crypto would be able to be figured out instantly because the prices fluctuate, right? And then you'd be able to scan and print and transfer crypto to pay your bills. And right now, if we had if the conventional financial system failed me, right? Like it fails a lot of divorced guys, right? Who end up in the family court system or the divorce court system. I'm starting to not call it the family court. I just call it divorce court. They like to put a pretty name on it. It's the family court. And what it does is destroys families, and it's the divorce court. So anyway, guys have been in situations where the divorce court suddenly decides they owe a lot more than they owe, and then they just dump that whole bill on their checking account, emptying the checking account, and then all your bills start bouncing. Your electric bill, your Visa bill, your other bills, and when they bounce, your bank charges you like $35, and then your biller turns around when your draft payment doesn't go through, and they charge you another $25 times about 6, 7, or 10 bills, and that could add up to some real money. But if I were in that situation, I could start I could like stop relying on my checking account to do that, and I could just sort of abandon it and leave it there as sort of a sacrifice for divorce court to like drag money out of, and then I could then just use one of several online bill paying services that work on Bitcoin or other types of crypto. So I could still pay my bills, whereas a lot of guys in that situation wouldn't be able to. But if the regular rails, like all the ATMs started failing and banks stopped sending money to each other, that could prevent a bill from being paid. But if I have Bitcoins and those other services, there are other ways of paying those bills. And then, so basically that claws power back to us. So as the country falls apart and as all these other forces attempt to seize control and seize control from us and seize power and our guns and our ability to defend ourselves and our wealth, our ability to be sovereign and solvent citizens, is attacked, crypto could reverse that, and fingers crossed. But it also could prevent them from gaining full control and rolling out their full new system right away. And plus, they're at each other's throats, like all these various countries, like China and the U.S., and they're all competing against each other. Crypto is to some extent competing against each other, but basically we got their eye on them. They have abused their ability to print endless amounts of money almost as far as they can. If they go very much farther, I mean, interest in Bitcoin is already ramping up from new people who are coming into the market. You can tell by the price. The price should have crashed by now, but it's just being held up by normal people who are just coming in and buying an extra $100 worth of Bitcoin and throwing it in their Trezor and going on with their life. It's pretty darn exciting, actually. So, okay, back to the original point of the video, and this is going to be mirrored on the Float app. Civilizations, they're getting torn apart, and there's forces that hold it together. Central banking has papered and tied the thing together as much as they could, and the elites have stratified and broken up the civilization into many, many little groups, and they've done everything they can to make those little groups hate each other, and that has allowed them to use their printed money to gain control over the whole system. But once that printed money starts to fail, boom, the whole thing could come apart dramatically. And the elites are very afraid of that because people start making guillotines when that happens, and they are the primary guest of honor if the guillotines really start going. They've got to get in front of every organization and group and take over that organization in order to steer it so that it doesn't end up with guillotines. And they're going to be using crypto, and when they use crypto, that's like that pulls that power all the way back to us. When they use a lot of crypto and they use their smart contracts, when they start using smart contracts to transfer stocks and real estate and whatnot, as that's already happening. Man, that is going to cripple their ability to print money, and any new system of printed money, even if they say, yes, we're going to back it with gold again, yeah, just like we did all the other times. Yeah, I know, well, the other times we backed it with gold, and then they said, by the way, we're temporarily closing the gold window, like Nixon did temporarily back in the 70s, and it's still closed. So basically, if gold it backs the fiat, it's not forever. It's not for very long. It only happens for a while, and then they close the gold window and print. And then whoever runs the printing press, they rule. But they are going to bring. They have got this technology. Is so valuable. It cannot just be left. They're not going to be having triple entry bookkeeping Bob Cratchit sitting at the freaking thing with his feather. They're not going to be doing that when smart contracts and computer powered logic is available. And when they use those technology, that brings that power, and it wrecks their ability to print money, and it brings all of that power back to us. Okay, that's pretty much that's what I see coming, and it's going to be rough for the next couple years. But during this next 18 months after the halvening, man, Bitcoins are so exciting. I'm a diesel mechanic. I can't give financial advice, but I am very happy I've got some Bitcoins socked away. And if I didn't have Bitcoin socked away, I would get in my truck right now after I took a shower, because I'm looking pretty rough, and I would go right to that diesel shop down the road, and I would apply for a job and start stocking away Bitcoins, and do it as much as I could until I reach this point I am right now again. That would be what I would do. I'd be buying Bitcoins. As it is, I'm retired and I'm not buying because I don't have any income. so I'm not doing it. But anyway, there is one last bit of information that I'd like to cover. Because the elites want to push this, and magnify this lockdown as much as they can, so that they can get more of a chance to loot and steal wealth, as well as seize more control, seize more of our rights, and push us down into subjects rather than citizens. They're doing as much as they can. So they're using their media to try to discredit any of the cures for the virus, so they're doing that as much as they can, and they're also seeing a lot of profits and possibly more totalitarian power with Bill Gates's really destructive, horrific vaccine program. And he's been kicked out of countries because of birth defects and all kinds of problems with like paralysis and infertility of children that they have inoculated. And now he's attempting to do it to us. And the stupid people are going to fall for it, of course. And but I will, a lot of people won't. And they're going to be really resistant to forced government injections. That's something we're pretty resistant of. So in any case, they're trying to discredit the hydroxychloroquine, I think it is, and they're doing what they can to decrease or slow down the human trials of other alternatives. And I found one alternative which works well in the petri dish, but not necessarily in the human trials are not complete. But we got this stuff right here. It's called ivermectin. And that has been shown to be pretty good as far as, and it's very much like hydroxychloroquine. And it might be, I mean, it's probable that it's very effective, but the human trials haven't been done. But you can still get this non-prescription for like animals and whatnot. That's how I get my. There's another dog worming medication that I take for my cancer, and I take it 4 days on, 4 days off. But anyway, that is also, a a veterinary medicine, but it's approved for human beings as well. So that's what I'm up to right now, MGTOWs. That's about all I got for you. Feel free to check out my Float app, and if you want to tip me Lightning Bitcoins, I'll put the links in the more video info. I don't want $5 tips. I want a quarter, and I want 10 cents. The ability to transfer tiny sums of money are where the Bitcoin Lightning Network really excels. So that's what I want to use it for. And it's like a calling card rather than, because I don't need the money. But I would love to see more Lightning tips. Okay, MGTOWs, that's about all I got for you, and don't get married.